Hello everybody and welcome back to World of Tanks Bootcamp with Zethika, here on the remade El Haloof in my, at this point, one and only tier 10 tank, the Object 268. Now this being my only tier 10 tank, I of course make no claims that I'm a good tier 10 player. Not that I ever make any claims that I'm a good player in any regards, really. I have decent stats, but there's so much more to this game than simply stats, right? I think we can all agree. However, with that said, I think we can all agree that my enemy team at this point is not feeling very lucky, with them being paired against 3 T-57 heavies in a platoon nonetheless. I'm betting they're feeling quite unlucky at this point, and I would as well, because that is just absurd. Now, what I'm going to be focusing on in this match is what this tank can do for you, which of course is the same thing that the two tanks before it could do, just better, and that is excel at peek-a-boom tactics and having somewhat, in this case, decent armor at least, and at least on the front, and somewhat good DPM. And I'm going to be showing you that since in just a moment it's going to be 14 minutes left on the timer, and I want you to remember that. I'm going to pause it right here. The second thing I'm going to be talking to you about today, which is most of what I'm going to be talking about, while the other thing is simply showing you, is what I would say a too small sample size confirmation bias. Quite a lot of people would be willing to bet that had they had a good experience in one position in a tank, they would be willing to bet that they could get a good experience in that position again later on. What I'm going to be showing you in this match is why that's wrong, and why you should always take everything you've learned about the game into account. Don't discount your previous experience by simply having a good one-time experience in a new tank. This was one of my, I don't remember, I think this is about 10 matches in or something. Now I'm a bit greedy player, so I'm going to be moving in here and hoping to get shots in on that. However, this Lorraine is making a fool out of me already, and I'm going to be trying to get ready to be flanked by anyone moving over here. However, this Lorraine, for some reason, is not going to be firing his full clip on me. Maybe he saw that T-57 heavy, in which case I can't blame him for moving back. This right here is the crucial moment. Because those two guys are focused on that T-57 heavy, I'm going to be moving up here, while I'm going to be very acutely aware that any tank sitting over here and over here is going to be able to get shots in on me. So I'm going to be ready to press that backpedaling button and hoping for the best, because I'm playing very greedy here, right? This is a stupid play, and there is no two ways about it. But the best thing you can do in this kind of situation, or the best thing that I was going to be doing in this situation, was to simply pay acute attention to anything shooting at me from over there and judging whether or not I need to fall back quickly. Of course, the risk here is that anything over there could, if there were 3 big tanks over there, they could probably one-shot me. Had the Waffen Tractor 100 who's over there been there, I would have died. This right here is only going to work because for some reason no one is sitting over there ready to shoot at this position, even though it is one of the most basic positions. So, this E75 is already dead, right? 2 shots. And a shot from my, I think that was the T28, who helped me a little bit there, or maybe it was the ISU 152. However, I did take 1 shot, but I'm quite satisfied with that. And we're going to execute this T37, T34, simply because why not, right? Now, that right there might be enough to lure some people to say that they should try that again. And they shouldn't. And I should not have gone there, because it was a bad position. You have no fallback position. It would be too slow to simply roll back over the hill. Any tanks sitting over here would be very able to simply kill them. And I had not spotted enough tanks to really make that judgment call that it was safe sitting up there. And now we are against this T-125, and I was quite prepared to take a bit of damage there, but I wanted to get shot in myself. I don't know why he decided he did not want to fire at me, but I'm not complaining, don't get me wrong. And here we're against this Panther 88, which is a tank I'm not very familiar with, and which I for some reason bounced against, even though it was on the flat part. Maybe my shot went a bit left and I hit his sloped armor, I don't know, maybe. Who knows? However, it did not go through for some reason. But because he's now aware, he's now focusing on tanks, my friendly tanks to the left, I'm feeling quite safe in moving up here. And as you can probably see on the minimap at this point, well, we need to have a bit of a... we need to be a bit fast, because the enemy team are currently in our base, while we are in theirs, of course, but we do not want to get outcapped. So I need to push it, and this T-125 is feeling a bit stupid that he went right out in front of that E-100 there. Now, the E-100 appears to be quite focused on this T-57 Heavy, and I can't really blame him. So I'm going to be focusing on that Jagdtiger over there. Currently, they're capping. Had they stayed capping, we would probably have lost, but for some reason they are not going to. Maybe the T-54 on the enemy team thought that they had a better chance of killing all the tanks over there, and through that maybe get into an advantageous position, but at this point I would rather have seen them simply cap, and I can tell you that that was the last damaging shot that I got in. Notice the timer. At 10 minutes and 22 seconds or something along those lines, I had done 6,000 damage. That is what this tank is all about. 3.5 minutes, 3 minutes and 40 seconds rather, and I had done 6,000 damage. That is quite significant. I'm not saying this tank necessarily has very good DPM, however, what it does have is, because most of its damage is coming from the alpha damage rather than sustained fire, it can do a very large amount of damage while staying relatively safe. Of course, I was not really in that much of a threatened position to begin with in this match. However, it still applies. Because its reload is, I don't actually know what it is at this point, I can't remember, but its reload is somewhat fast compared to the other two tanks. It still needs to be out showing itself quite a bit more, but still, the end result is still the same. It can play this peek-a-boom tactics where it can use its giant alpha damage to simply wreck the enemy tanks. And that is really what this tank is all about for me. Of course, it does nothing against it that it is such a lovely upgrade from the tanks before it, in that it is, well, it's better in every regard, right? It's got better armor, it's got a better gun, and it's got better speed. And it's got better maneuverability, which is one thing that I really did not like about the ISU 152. So as you can see, we've now won because of the two tanks who decided they were going to cap over there. However, had the enemy team had a tank inside of the cap circle, I would think they had at least had a better chance of winning. However, that's up to debate, and of course, our friends would probably have been able to simply interrupt them. However, I would think that would have been the best chance of them winning. Now let's move on to the post-game stats. And here we are. So as you can see, I earned 68,211 credits gross, 2,670 experience earned, and a 2x victory. I also earned a high caliber medal, but not a Top Gun, sadly. It would have been nice, really. Although I only got 2 kills, but I did a very big amount of damage. We can also see that this was a 2-class master badge with only 890 base experience, which tells me that it's not really such a high base experience value that the master badge requires in this tank. Of course, you also have to take into account that since it is a tier 10, it can only meet equal tier and lower tier, which means that it's going to make less experience, of course. Now, I did by far the most damage in my team, and I did, well, 2,000 more damage than that Bad Chat 25T on the enemy team. What that should really tell you is that even though I was at the front lines and in very advantageous positions, this tank can really put out some damage very, very fast and rather securely. Since it's got a bit decent armor, but of course at tier 10 this is not really something that is so relevant, since a lot of tanks can simply pen it anyways. But I fired 10 shots and only 8 hits. Which shots did I miss? Which shot did I miss? I can't remember. Did I miss? When did I miss? Oh well, I apparently missed 2 shots, but I can't really recall which right now. Maybe against the Panther? Oh, and I fired a shot against that T-175, but it hit the ground, of course, yeah. Fine. Now, I did only 607. I only got 607 assistance damage, and I got 6 spottings, which would tell you that I was at the forefront, and that's really all it should tell you. It's not that it's not really that this tank's got great view range. Of course, it's got fine, but it's nothing really. Well, all the tier 10 tanks are quite capable in that regard. I also earned 34,571 credits net, which is probably mostly due to me being a premium account, which we can also see right there, that if I hadn't, I would only have earned 11,000. So, yeah, these tier 10 tanks is certainly not the money makers. That's not something I have a lot of experience with, since I've usually always played with premium. Now, what I wanted to show you in this match is why it's a bad idea to disregard your previous experiences based on a single good experience, right? And your logic. When you've gotten to this point, or really any one of you should probably be able to simply tell that my move by moving up there was stupid. I was way too exposed to anything, and I did not know what was over there. That's really the big kicker. Had there been a light tank over there, which had told us that there were no people, then it would have been fine, right? But I did not know. I was simply betting, and I was being greedy. And that's something you should not be doing, especially not when you're one of the, five tier 10 tanks in the match, because then your gun is that much more valuable. Think about this. Had that E100 been sitting up there and had he fired a heat shot at me, doing, 1,000 damage, I would have been out of the game right then and there. I would not have dared to move forward, being as aggressive as I was and goating my team to be aggressive with me. And that's really a big thing for anyone who wants to get a high win rate, is that you also need to be able to goad your friends into winning. Or being aggressive, rather. But had I not been rational, I might have said that that position right there is a position that will work in a lot of cases, and it isn't. And I know that it isn't, because usually I'm one of the guys sitting right over there and shooting at the people who moves over that ridge. Had there been anyone over there, the E75 would have been in a somewhat, still a bit stupid position, since he could get shot at from the south, but at least a bit better, since he would have had backup in some regard. And the second thing that I want to talk about in this match, of course, is the tank itself. It's very fast. I love it. I'm not very good in tier 10s yet. I hope I will be at some point. I don't really know why it is that it feels so different, but it really does. It really feels a bit different to play tier 10s than it does playing anything else. Maybe it's because, I don't know. Maybe it's because you're guaranteed to always be against tier 10s. So, yeah, maybe that's it. And tier 10s do have so much penetration. I say that this tank's got good armor, right? And it's got 180 at the front, right? That's good, and it's also got good sloping. But you shouldn't really count on it, because the tier 10s has got so good penetration that it's somewhat irrelevant. And of course this gun is simply an upgraded version of this gun. The BL-10 on the ISU and the M64 on the Object 268 is basically the same gun. It's a bit faster firing. Actually, a lot less than I thought. It feels so much faster. Interesting. Oh well. And it's got a bit better penetration. A lot better with the gold ammo though. That's something to consider. Very, that's actually insane. And the same damage. Quite a bit more precise. And a very much faster aiming time. That's probably why I feel like this is so much faster firing. Because I can take those snapshots a lot easier. However, it's basically the same gun, and that's also the reason why this ISU 152 is so troll at tier 8 when it's against only tier 8s. And it's also why it works decently enough against tier 10s. But I hope you still enjoyed, and I hope you learned to not trust a single game. Always trust your logic and your past experiences rather than a single decent game. This wasn't even a mastery badge, right? So, of course, I'm not saying this was brilliant. I'm saying that you should not let this kind of game flavor your opinion of certain positions. And that position right there, I've said it 3 times now, but that position right there is stupid. Do not use it. You need to sit behind the hill and wait for them to move up over the hill and then fire. You should not move out to a position where you do not know where the enemy teams, where you can get shot at by the enemy team. You should never put yourself in that kind of position. And that's probably one of the reasons why I'm not doing so well in the tier 10s, is that I'm doing that because I'm used to being able to be a bit more aggressive. But that's not something you can do in tier 10s, where everything that's going to be shooting at you is probably a decent player and has it's probably a decent player and has good penetration and is able to simply counter your positions. So with that, I hoped it was at least entertaining to watch me fail in this T10. And I hope you enjoyed. I certainly did, and I hope I'll see you all back some other day for more World of Tanks. Please, every one of you, have a very nice evening.